Hello, welcome to another interview episode of The Way I See It. In this episode, I interviewed John Fisher, a friend of mine who lives in Florida, and we've known each other since childhood. Grew up in Cartersville. I chose to interview him because even though we see eye to eye on a lot of things, he's gay, he's an atheist, we had similar childhoods but diverging adulthoods, and yet some things are similar now as adults in our outlook. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for watching. John Fisher. John, say hello to
Hello, Internet.
anyone on YouTube who might care to watch this interview. So John, I haven't really known you except on Facebook primarily, because even my knowledge of you as a child is so vague, kind of like in passing, because we only moved in the same circles at Tabernacle for such a short period of time. And our parents weren't like in the same circle socially, so that we didn't really see each other much.
Yeah, when you said that the other day, it kind of like took me back because I was like, wow, really? Because I didn't feel that way. I have a real vivid memory of you. Like, I don't know. That's one reason why I've talked to you, this time, and thought this would be fun to do this, because I don't think I've seen you in person since, I would say at the most recent, maybe my early 20s or something. Yeah. I don't know, but I know that one time I almost delivered pizza to your house, but you were like... You did, but I wasn't there, or I was in a different part of the house. Yeah, I didn't know that you were going to be the delivery person. That was kind of weird. But, well, yeah, because, see, the thing is, first of all, I don't have really great memory in general. People will talk to me like Meta or Aaron or Monty will be like, you remember such and such and such and such? And I'm like, no. I mean, I was there. It's like this vague, I don't know. So, but secondly, a lot of my memories obviously become more vivid, like after age 12 or so. And starting in middle school, I went to Cartersville. So you and I didn't go to the same school. So there's just, that's kind of my reason why I feel like our association going back to childhood was kind of vague. Well, I mean, I think if anything, it probably speaks to like the brightness of your personality, because I just remember like how funny you were and how, just bubbly, and I was like, and it was just kind of funny, and how goofy you were.
Yes, you were goofy, that's true.
And then that's why it kind of surprised me a few years later to see you, as a young lady, like singing on TV, and I was like, oh wow, like Rachel is so mature now.
Singing and singing in church, I remember being asked when I was like at elementary age, are you ADD? Stuff like people would ask me, and I'd be so offended. I'd be like, no.
So you can ask that.
I'm not ADD. I mean, I was crazy and goofy and silly, but not like I couldn't control myself. I think it was just because like my dad, I was just so gregarious and just loved the attention and loved being part of everything. So I just want to talk. My goal in these interviews is not like debating things. I think there's a place for that, but I also feel like any debate that I could get into with anybody has been handled by smarter people. You can just go look them up on YouTube, right? Like you can watch people debate all kinds of things.
Yeah,
so I kind of want to just hear stories. Like that's my thing.
Yeah, to me, and I think that's part of what's kind of wrong with the whole like YouTube algorithm. It's great for, if there's something really specific you want to see. But then it's like if you watch anything that's like just a fraction right or left of center, it's like you fall down a rabbit hole of like how many clicks away are you from
from like Alex Jones,
yeah, or Jared Taylor or something like that. And I've seen a lot of those videos, but. Yeah, but no, yeah, I hear what you're saying about stories. Yeah, no, so I guess one thing I would say, just kind of bouncing off what we already talked about was, it's talking about you and being you were a performer in a musical. I mean, sorry, you were a musical person, but I mean, I sort of am or became so later. But and how gregarious you were, but me, like, it's just kind of thinking about this earlier and feeling kind of nervous about doing something like this, and I was like, wow, like I'm really a shy person, Public speaking is one of the most popular fears, if you will. But wow, I'm just really hypersensitive to like being watched, and always have been when I was a kid, and just.
Yeah. It's interesting. Brandon, my husband, is a professional actor, and he's an introvert naturally, but and he didn't really like performing and stuff until I think he kind of. I mean, obviously he likes it, and he chose it as a career, but I think it's when he kind of tapped into the idea of being a different person on stage than he was in real life. Whereas I am kind of like just I'm kind of like just a magnified version of myself a lot of times. I mean, especially in something like this, because I'm not acting, we're just talking, but I feel like that's kind of how I behave on stage or in front of people. It's just like I say, a magnified version of myself. Whereas Brandon tends to put on, this other persona or whatever. We were talking about introversion and extroversion. So you were pretty shy as a kid. Well, I guess you were pretty shy all your life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I was really little, I guess I wasn't really like that. I mean, I think honestly, I guess I came to be that way more as I progressed in school, honestly, because I guess probably because of what people would maybe like call bullying now or something like that.
I mean, did it have to do with you kind of coming to realize you're gay and wanting to pull back because of that, or I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's kind of more or less. I mean,
or even aside from being gay, just being sensitive or whatever. I mean.
Yeah, I know, it was weird. I don't know. It's funny to try to put your head back in a time like that. But I mean, I think it's pretty typical of, I guess, teenagers and young people to kind of become a little bit more withdrawn as they become adolescents, I guess. I mean, it seems like I'm largely out of that, but but yeah, there's still times when I feel like that for sure. Like shy.
Now, growing up, did you kind of, I don't know, this is not like a air dirty laundry time, but tell me like just how you felt growing up in your family. You're the third, right, of 4 children, the oldest of the boys. There's 2 girls and 2 boys, right?
Yeah, my 2 older sisters, and 2 older sisters older than me, and then my 1 brother who's younger than me. So yeah, I was the third. We were actually we had a pretty normal like family life, at least to me. Like I said, I'm in my early 40s. I mean, I always felt like we were pretty typical. I mean, at least for our town, and well, I mean, there were some ways maybe not so much. Like my dad was from Ohio. My mom is from Macon, so she had some roots in the South and everything. But there's just this particular flavor about North Georgia that I just felt like we never really fit in,
Yeah.
And even my mother, like it was almost like she's like from this old world, She's from Macon, so it's like I don't know. I mean, and she went to Emory and everything, and my dad was from, like I said, he's from Ohio, and he didn't really encounter the South until he was stationed here after he joined the Air Force. And I think he took on like some of the affectations and things like that. But it's funny because when he gets really emotional, i.e., angry or something like that, he doesn't have a Southern like drawl at all.
That's interesting. Like I didn't know he was from Ohio, and that's interesting that you kind of say you didn't feel like you were kind of embedded in the North Georgia culture because of that.
And it seems really insular to me too. I mean, as I grew up, and I think maybe that's part of why I kind of felt the need to kind of create my own identity, or just to kind of set myself apart, because I felt like, and I've had other conversations with people like this from Bartow County and so on, that, you know, not necessarily people who are kind of more on the outcast side of things. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, people here are so like staunch and like rigid, and I guess a lot of people in small towns are I guess are generally perceived like that, but
well, I think
I don't know.
because in small towns they're proud of like their heritage and tradition, and they're not, you know, they just don't have that kind of bohemian or progressive or whatever outlook, you know. So you grew up, you went to Cass, you graduated from Cass, and then you said you haven't finished college, but you've apparently done quite a bit of college, right? Haven't you gone to various schools, endeavored in doing various degrees? What's the story there?
Yeah, no, I went to two different schools. I went to, well, it was called Floyd College at the time. Now it's Georgia Highlands, and after that, Kennesaw State. But yeah, that's true. I mean, you can say.
What did you major in? What was your pursuit though?
At the end there, it was English. That was at Kennesaw State. I had originally, I think when I first went to Floyd, I was calling myself a journalism major, and at that time, around that time, I kind of was going to school like off and on, like one semester on, off, and during that time, I wrote for the Bartow Neighbor newspaper, the part of the Marietta Daily Journal, for about a year. But
you should get back into it. See, we need some journalists now who are actually just journalizing and not activists posing as journalists. There's a space for you, John. We need you.
You know what? It's interesting you say that. Maybe I should take that angle. Look for something to do. That's a good idea.
Start, you know, or you could just start with like starting up a blog and getting some traffic that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe the YouTube channel is maybe the closest thing to something like that I've done so far. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever really set out to. I mean, like if you have your own like blog, like I mean, it's not on any other platform.
Yeah.
Like it just seems like it's a lot of work, you know. Like I mean, I can think of like one person, Dennis Cooper, who's like this cult, you know, fiction, author. His blog is, I mean, I've just read and talked about it, but it just seems like it's a lot of work. And of course, that would be definitely different from something I would be doing. But
yeah, I had a
Yeah.
blog several years ago, and it's still, I mean, it still runs, but I just don't do anything on it because I basically use YouTube as my blog. It's just I'm videoing myself saying basically the things I would be writing in my blog, and I thought, do I want to take the time to duplicate everything and write it all out? But those kind of sites get their own set of traffic, you know. I don't know. The really good people, the people who really know how to network and get a lot of followers, use multiple outlets like that. Like they'll put in the work, and I don't need the income to put in the work.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, this is just, but it's just funny how, you know, of course, you know, like I said, you know, we haven't seen each other in a good 20 years or so, and then now we are, you know, via the magic of, you know, the internet and technology and everything. Mm-hmm. But do you feel like I've heard people talk about this, people probably smarter than me, but do you feel like most jobs nowadays are almost kind of like a variation on some kind of show business, and that has to do with the internet?
It has, yeah, well, yeah, there's definitely been an expansion in that field. I mean, my kids watching these YouTube channels where I'm like, this is their income. This is these people's, they're not getting it specifically from YouTube clicks because that really only generates a small amount of income, but they sell merchandise through their YouTube channel. They get ads. You know, they get paid to run ads on their YouTube channels, and so you got that whole field that didn't exist, you know, 15 years ago. So you got, and they're professional like video game players.
Oh yeah, I
So
mean,
then my kids are watching other people play video games and make money off of playing video games.
yeah, it's just, I mean, sometimes when I'll be streaming things, and first of all, like I'm subscribed to the Criterion channel, which is, you know, kind of, pretty much, I mean, of the streaming channels, that's pretty much the oat, if you will. I mean, high quality, films like from all over, world cinema and everything. But I have a yearly subscription, but I'll be scanning my list, for the shortest movie for like, what's 90 minutes? Is there anything shorter than 90 minutes? And I'm just like, wow. It's like, isn't it supposed to be enjoyable? I mean, attention spans are just so small now, and even if it's something that I'm interested in, like my mind is like, well, what's going on my phone now? I want to look at it. Well,
I'm amazed. My daughter will be watching. We're going through the Marvel movies, and each one of these Marvel movies is about 2.5 hours long. And she'll sit there and watch those whole things, and then when they're over, she's like, "No, I wanted to keep going." And she's 10, so I'm amazed that she's part of this. But yet, then she'll watch these YouTube videos. But she likes to watch YouTube videos that are like 20 minutes long. I mean, as long as what I do. But she's watching people build video game worlds, or she's watching like sisters making slime. So it's interesting that these kids, because she's not on social media yet, so she hasn't gotten that kind of infected brain where it's like gotta constantly scroll, gotta constantly see what's new, what's changing. It's like when we used to watch cartoons, they're just watching them on YouTube now. It's just like, but it's the same length. They're able to. I feel like she's able to focus.
I think like
we're the ones that have been damaged by social media.
I mean, and I think it's more because we didn't, like, we're used to something differently. So I don't know about you, but I feel like we've lost something just because we don't have to physically go to,
Blockbuster.
And pick out a movie, I mean, and it was even that was kind of social, I mean,
yeah.
Sometimes you'd see people from, town or whatever. It's a brave new world, I guess.
Yeah. So you went to college, you did journalism, you did English, but you haven't finished those things. I would highly encourage you to finish journalism. Tell me about when you kind of decided to come out of the closet. What led to that? What made you, brave enough to do that and all that stuff?
Well, first, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is deflecting or something, but I just wanted to say that I watched your video, if not all of it, most of it, about debating homosexuality, and I was really impressed, like with your forthrightness, and I just think that really took. I mean, even though you say like it seems like you kind of like toss it off, but even today, that takes something just to be open. And honestly, it's not that different from my attitude, how I see sexuality. I mean, I tend to see things more from almost kind of like Camille Paglia or Gore Vidal's kind of perspective. Whereas, I mean, if you think about it long enough, yeah, I mean, there really is. I mean, heterosexual and homosexual identities are like invented thing, and there are simply acts. But as far as it's similar to kind of draw an analogy between sexual orientation, if you will, and like physical attributes like race, which for a lot of people would probably not be the greatest analogy, but just in terms of how we move around the world scientifically, I don't know, they're just very different things. The way that we experience life as it's lived, and like the scientific reality is very different. But just for those day-to-day purposes of getting around and talking to people, it's easier to, just to make it simple. I'm a gay man. I date men when I date. I'm married to a man, and so on. So I don't know. I mean, that might be oversimplifying what I'm saying, but as far as my own personal story, I don't know. It's funny to me because I guess this kind of speaks to me being something of of an introvert and whatnot, but I didn't really. I wasn't one of these people who. Is it really a closet if you hadn't dated
If you didn't know
anyone
you were
before?
in it, I guess.
Well, it's like and I wasn't like even kids, or at least a little later, that was that I thought was really obvious or and whatnot. But I don't know, because I look back at that time and I'm like, well, I don't know. It was more about asserting my identity, because it's not like I wasn't really dating anyone, and I was really inexperienced. I mean, really inexperienced. So when I came out, um, yeah, it was honestly, and I guess when I look back on it on the lens of today, like it was kind of like a trend, and I don't know, I can't really, you know, blame myself for following something like that. I mean, at that young, I mean, not just that I was just following it, but it just seemed to resonate with me and what I was feeling, and I guess even
You mean
what I was reading.
it being the elevation of homosexual culture, kind of more it gaining more popularity, so to speak.
Well,
You
just
said it
becoming
seemed
more
to
visible.
you said it seemed to resonate with me in my experience.
Right, just becoming more visible, like Ellen coming out was a really big watershed moment for me, anyway.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
So was there like ever a moment where you said, "Mom, Dad, I have to tell you something," or was it just like, "This is just my life. I'm living it." They figure it out, like people just figure it out without me having to say, "Here's my announcement."
Yeah, I mean, I did an announcement, sort of. Yeah, this sounds really, really sucky, but actually, I think I wrote a note, at least to one parent, and another I actually told verbally. But when I told someone verbally, I think I was like maybe 18, but I wasn't believed, or at least I was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. And I was like, so, and it was weird, I guess, because of the way that I approached it. It's like I really didn't know like where to go from it. It's so awkward when you're a teenager. I feel like I don't know. All you have to do is like watch Angela Chase in My So-Called Life, and that's pretty much.
You just felt awkward about life in general.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just like anything that I wasn't expecting, or I guess planning for, it was kind of met with dumbfoundedness, or just.
So did you feel like having to write a note was for their benefit or for your benefit? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to do this to get this off my chest, or is it like I have to do this so that they'll understand? You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think I know what you're saying. For me, it was. I mean, I have reflected about these kinds of things before, but no, I mean, I can see it. I have no problem with people calling it a selfish act in a way. I really don't, because I mean, at least for me, it kind of was, because I wasn't active, along any kind of scene or dating or.
Yeah, it's not like I've got this hidden life and I need to tell you all about
it. Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It was just like there's some kind of strange. To me, it's kind of like how some people talk about the need to like create or something like that, and I feel like a lot of teenagers feel that kind of like gnawing need, and it's all about like asserting their identity and so on. And it's interesting. I was talking to actually a black young man the other day, who I don't know from Adam, but I talked to him online, and like I'm gonna be honest with you, like many gay men use like the apps, like even if they're married. I mean, it's just the social thing. Like you don't even have to be in an open relationship. It's just a social thing. But no, I was talking to this guy, and that's how I know. The reason I mention that is because that's how I know that he must have been, queer himself, or gay or whatever. And I asked him, about recent events, and he mentioned that he went to some protests around here in the Orlando area. and his answer was, it's a sad world. There's lots of sad things going on. He said, but he's like the event I went to. He said it was beautiful. He's like, it's like how the world should be, and so on. And I said to him a few minutes later, after I was thinking about it, I was like, it really struck me how him saying that, how that reminded me of how like a gay or queer person would have described a pride event in years ago before they became co-opted by corporations and whatnot. But no, I really feel like it's that same energy. It's kind of similar to, like, I don't know, like punk rock or something. Like, they don't really know. It's kind of like what Joe Rogan said the other day, like, no justice, no peace, but like, okay, but like, he's going to jail. Like, I don't know. It's just it feels good to them, It's but we can't have a society based on it feels good to scream and yell and pitch a fit,
Well, yeah, I mean, and I feel like every human, even though I'm a libertarian and believe in the individual liberty and all that, I've talked about in another video as a Christian being part of the body of Christ, and I can't let my individuality usurp my, I want to say, beholdenness, my obligation to other Christians and to the body, because I think when we do that, something else will come in to fill that void. We all kind of have this internal, I don't know if we all, I shouldn't say all, most people have this sort of internal need to be sort of part of something bigger, whether that be a church, a body, body of Christ, or a political movement, or a baseball group of baseball fans.
Like LGBT, yeah.
Yeah, or LGBT. That pride or Black Lives Matter or whatever. Everybody wants to be part of something bigger, and they want to be part of something they see as like changing the world. So tell me how you met Max, your husband.
Oh, interesting. No, I met him online, like a lot of people do nowadays, or maybe even most. But yeah, it was about 2012, I think, for the very first time. Yeah, and
so 8 years. That's a long time so far.
Yeah, and we didn't actually talk for some time in between, about between 2012 and I guess maybe 2015. We weren't close yet at that time, and we just kind of we're living life, I guess.
Yeah. So how did you decide to start? I mean, what brought y'all to the point where y'all decided to start dating or move in together or get married, all that,
I think the biggest things for me on my end was, I mean, as far as, bigger steps, leading ultimately, to marriage and cohabitation first and whatnot, would be just, I was just really unhappy living where I was in in Roswell, actually, to be specific. And, I just lived in that, area, North Georgia, all my life, and I didn't really like my job, and I wasn't living around my friends that I had known when I was younger in Cartersville anyway, and I'd kind of grown apart from them, and I was just like, if it's time to start a new life, I was like, I might as well do it. And I was like, this is the time, like, I'm not getting any younger. And
so did you move down to Florida because your grandmother lived down there?
No, I moved down here because he lived down here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you did have a grandmother that lived down there, right? Am I imagining that?
Yeah, she actually died in early November last year. She was she's born, I think, in 1915, I think.
Wow.
17. 17, yeah. So she would have been 103, I guess, just a few days ago.
So how old was she when she died?
102, I guess.
That's crazy. So she you said she just died a few months ago. I was just making sure I wasn't missing that. She lived to be over 100. That's pretty awesome. Is this your mom's mom or your dad's mom?
It's my dad's mother.
Yeah. So you moved down there because of Max, and you had this basically just an online relationship before that? Or had you just seen him when you go to visit your grandmother or whatever?
Yeah, there was some of that. Yeah, it was mostly long distance before we took the big move, if you will. But we did see each other in person a couple times. Yeah. I mean, 2 times I should say. Yes.
Now,
But,
seeing you comment online about his broken English, where's he from?
He's from Chile, actually.
Chile.
Yeah, yeah. I have to say it correctly.
No, yeah, not Chile. Chile.
Yeah, Chile. Yeah, that's where he's from. And yeah, and it's interesting because my perspective is it seems like, just from what I've gathered and learned, that I mean, despite the communist regime over there, relatively recently, despite all that, it seems to me that Chile is almost culturally like closer to the U.S. I mean, just maybe just like pop culture or something like that than the other Latin American countries like with Brazil and Argentina and so on. So it seems kind of interesting to me. It's almost like it seems kind of like the Japan of South America.
Yeah, interesting. So, where do you align anywhere politically? Like, what do you kind of think of the political landscape these days? And you can go into historically, like historically I used to be this and now I'm this, or I've always been whatever. If you want to, just give me the gamut.
Yeah, I used to be one of these people that, I say one of these people, as if they're not people, but yeah, I shouldn't talk like that. No, before politics went crazy and gravity went, downward, and down was down and up was up. I thought, I was down with the Democratic Party and everything, and I thought, oh, this is the good thing to do. And I mean, whenever I would vote, even like local elections, when I lived in Bartow or something, if I didn't know anything about the candidate, I would look at the D or the R, after their name, and I would, usually gravitate toward the D.
Yeah.
And then if it was between 2 R's, I would, and one sounded like a man, like a woman, I would usually vote for the woman to see, like, oh, screw you, stick it to the man. But I feel like everything is just kind of like flip-flopped, and yeah, I think that's one reason maybe I couldn't do like the punditry. I can't know how to say it.
That part of journalism that wouldn't appeal to you.
Yeah, because I can't get behind. I couldn't do like say what Candace Owens or Dave Rubin or any of those guys do, because I just can't. I mean, not that they're like they're not always not always stumping for Trump either.
Trumping for Trump,
but yeah. I can't get behind him because I'm just like, what is that? It just gives me such a headache. But no, I do. It's funny. I have defended him a few times, like online. Not really crazy, but just like little things that bug me. And I've had some people that I've talked to get the impression that that I dig Trump, and I'm like
you're alt-right. Really, you're part of the alt-right.
I'm like, I really don't dig Trump. I mean, it just bothers me when the media will say some things just to get, a click or a headline or whatever. Now that whole, drink bleach thing or whatever, that was something else. But no. To ask where I feel like I identify politically, I would say probably now. I mean, I still see myself like as a liberal. I mean, I think I'm liberal, but. But I guess by today's lights, I would probably be considered center or right of center. Hopefully, slightly right. I mean, there's just like so many things.
I keep hearing the Overton window is shifting further. Like my hands are going off the screen. Like the Overton window of what you got to be to be considered, a Democrat or a Democrat worth listening to seems to be so far left of. But yet there's a lot of Democrats that just aren't getting press. They're just not getting attention, even though there's probably more of these more moderate Democrats than the far left screamies. It's like I heard an interview the other day with a woman who's a pro-life Democrat, and she's like, there's 21 million that identify. I don't know if this is people who are registered through this organization she's part of or whatever, but they go to the March for Life and stuff, but but in government, there's only like 5 or less than 5 that identify as pro-life Democrats in state or national level government.
Yeah, it just seems like because of how short attention spans are and how everything is driven, and people talk about triggers, as though that's a negative thing, but that's like the whole culture and the whole politics and discourse is driven by triggers now, for good or ill, and
like,
people just
and it used to be triggers were useful. A trigger was useful to instill you to start thinking critically and debate something. Whereas now they don't want to debate. It's like, oh, I'm triggered. I want to run and hide so I can just keep thinking what I'm thinking. And you're a bad person. How dare you trigger me?
I don't know. So where do you think all this is going? Do you think that we're going to go into like some kind of, because I mean, my prediction is, barring some kind of miracle, which I don't foresee happening, I think Trump is probably going to win if they get it. And I think maybe things will get so bad, either due to a combination of the pandemic, in addition to the civil unrest, that is going to be lockdown and some kind of martial law, and that's, I don't know, when you got people trying to tear down, what is it, the Jefferson Memorial in Washington,
and they're
D.C.?
tearing down like any statue of anybody, even if they were someone who was an abolitionist and was, setting up schools for black children back in the days when that was really needed because black children weren't part of the regular public education. I mean, and people tearing down those statues because they don't care about history. They just care about, oh, this is a statue, therefore it must be racist. They want to tear down everything that is any sort of remembrance of Western civilization, because for some reason they think that any Western civilization is white supremacist, which I want to say, if you look at the history of the world, everybody, whether it's on a small scale, just tribes, or on a big scale with entire nations, everybody conquers the people around them. Like, the black people want to call white people colonizers, but I'm like, literally everybody is a colonizer of somebody. They've always been a colonizer of somebody. The problem was just when you had like England and Spain and France in the 16 and 1700s, they were so massive, they like perfected the art of colonization. But that's not a white thing. That's a literally everybody colonizes everybody else around them. So then you have to go past that and look at the kind of civilization that has been set up in the West, and it allows for changes and assimilation and spreading equal rights and that kind of stuff. If you get us out of Western civilization values, you're going to lose the ability to actually gain equal rights. You're going to lose the ability to actually say everybody's worth listening to, everybody needs to have a voice, and everybody needs to be heard, because like I say, everybody else is just out there conquering and putting their heel on, like putting their knee on the neck of whoever they're conquering. So I don't know. I feel like we have to adhere to the Western civilization values that give us the right to protest, that give us the right to cry out for change and equality.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get where we got to this point of where we don't realize that, that the United States is basically the pinnacle of all the values that the left purports to be in favor of. I mean, this is the best. Oh, I mean, or at least it used to. I mean, okay, well, free speech, obviously, but also, women are the most free here, have the most, liberties, and, as a gay man, like, this is still, other than maybe some countries in Europe, it's still the best place to live. And it's just, and also racial tolerance as well, and tolerance for other, and that's not to say that, I mean, we definitely aren't a monoculture anymore. I mean, there's remnants of that, but I don't know. I guess one thing I wanted to mention was it's not just monuments either. It's like, it's the minutia of culture that's having to go. Like, I heard on this NPR show, they were talking about television shows that have to do with law enforcement, and cops in particular was canceled. Yeah. But they were also talking about The Shield. They actually had a writer from that show, The Shield, if you remember that, from FX, some years ago, which is a cop show, I think, with
it was kind of like a dirty cop, right? I mean, wasn't he kind of like
Michael Chiklis, the bald guy. And they were talking to one of the creators or writers of the show, and the host of of the NPR show, with some starch in her voice, she just kind of asked him, "Do you think the show holds up? In light of recent Black Lives Matter, ideology and whatnot." I don't think she used the word ideology, but that's obviously what she. I'm like, where do we get the point where that even matters? Like TV shows existed; they portrayed reality, which included law enforcement at this time. So. Yeah. Everything that's
the good and the bad. I mean, because The Shield even portrays the good and the bad. It talks about the conflict of, the dirty cop or whatever.
To me, it just seems like the cultural version of, if you only want to see things that you agree with, that you like. And this is actually an Orwell quote that I heard mentioned the other day about. Orwell said something like, if you want to imagine the future, think of a boot stomping on a human face forever, or something like that. And that to me is like the cultural. That's what they want to do culturally. They want to. And it's like, how are you going to do that? There's so many nooks and crannies. I mean, it's book burning. It's crazy.
It's to me, I'm worried about the future of movie making and just entertainment in general, in that sense, television, because I foresee the downfall of truly creative, thoughtful, thought-provoking writing, because you're going to have, let's say, a period piece about slavery, and if the white slave master is not brutal, and if the slaves aren't crying out for their freedom and saying all these things that we say now in the 21st century, which they did not say in the middle of the 19th century, then that's not going to pass the woke test. But in reality, you'd have to create nuanced people. Maybe have slave masters who are racist but conflicted about slavery. Have slaves who want their freedom but they're scared because they don't know how to live free. You're not going to see that anymore. You're not going to see nuanced exhibitions of a take on another time. When we go back more than, I've heard somebody say something like, if you go back more than 30 years in time, it's like you've gone to another country. Even if you're if you're just looking at Cartersville in 1980, it's like a different country than now.
Yeah, I think most people say that. Cartersville isn't a big city now. It's bigger than it was, but you hear that about the major world cities now, that they're kind of indistinguishable in many ways from each other in some ways. But that's just the world we live in now. I mean, I don't know.
You were talking about Trump winning, and it's so hard to know right now what's going to happen. Like, if you just look at the first 6 months of this year, how crazy it's been, and between now and November, that's 5 months away. It's hard to know what's going to happen. Like, are we going to have a legitimate election? Are we going to have a big coup against the forms of government we know between now and November? Or is this all just a bunch of bluster and things are just going to kind of plod along, and we're still going to... And if Trump does, let's say that we have an election, and let's say Trump wins in a landslide, is that going to cause people to suddenly say, as we hoped it would happen in 2016, but it didn't, we hoped the media would say, you know what, we really got the pulse of the country wrong. Let's start just reporting on the actual news and not put our spin on it. That didn't happen. No, the media thought, these people are dumber than we thought they were. We need to try even harder to show them what a horrible person Trump is. So they doubled down on that, and everything became just, it's worse than you think, guys. Trump is racist. He's more racist than you thought he was. He's stupider than you thought he was. And so that it's just fomented more craziness, because rather than the media saying, you know what, we were wrong, let's reassess how we do our job, No, they like went further down that hardcore hole. So that makes me worried that if Trump wins again, it's just going to get even worse.
It's interesting you say that because I wouldn't say that it makes me have a change of heart, but it actually makes me look more kindly at some of the uprising. And some of it, is, peaceful demonstrations, and obviously, some of it, a lot of it, whatever, is not. But it makes me think more kindly of it because because you have people saying, what if people really legitimately just peacefully demonstrated and there was no violence and everything? And people waited for due process to take effect, and this man, would get convicted or get his, comeuppance for whatever happened. That video is not as unambiguous as people seem to think it is. Anyway, but what I'm thinking is the media. That's why we have the media do the same thing. I mean, the media. It's a rioting and looting of journalism and truth. I mean, it's just like the last time that I've watched anything like any of the news channels. Like, I mean, for one thing, the colors, on the digital screens, now are so bright and everything, but just stabs you in the eye. It's, oh my God! If you look like a piece of candy, like everything is just so fake. And I mean, I hear what you're saying that they don't talk about real news, and they focus on Trump as a personality. But I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship. I feel like it's like it is sort of, you really can't distinguish between the mainstream media, if you want to call it that, and what's going on in the rest of the culture. It's sad, but I don't know. I think I'm just not going to vote, and I don't know. I'm just going to live my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to.
Yeah, sometimes I do wonder. I'm like, we're sitting here having a discussion. Does it matter? Does it matter to the world, the future of politics or reason or anything like that? Or
yeah, it matters. I mean, I think this is the most elemental form of discourse, and if people stop doing this, whether it be via video or in person. Certainly in person, if people stop doing that, that's the breakdown of society, the atomization. That seems to be a word that's going around a lot now.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I even give a little credence to some of the conspiracy theorists about this is all a plot, because the reason I say that is just because of the way this is kind of going on all around the world. Like everywhere they want to knock down their country statues. They want to protest. If they're not protesting Black Lives Matter, they're protesting they're using that as like a reason to kind of push some other agenda, because every country has. So I don't know what's going on around the world, because I'm like, I guarantee you the Black people in France are not having the same problems as the Black people here in America. I mean, they may be having some problems, but it's a different history there. It's a different cultural relationship. So I don't know what the deal is worldwide, why there's this seeming push to just take to the streets and have a riot for the sake of having a riot.
Do you think that, like, in general, do you think that kind of thing, I mean, we mentioned youth and whatnot, and, the fact that, people have been cooped up, and young people always want to get out and, get their yah-yahs or whatever, but how much of that do you think is just ignorance or illiteracy in general? I mean, people not having the ability to think critically, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How good do you think is that? I mean, because
it
obviously
might be. There's a mix of that plus social media causing one message to spread around the world now that would not have happened 50 years ago or even 30 years ago, combined with cooped up, and everybody's eager to get out and be part of something bigger. So maybe those kind of are the reasons why we had this perfect storm of suddenly now everybody around the world is protesting something for some reason. Even if the reasons don't all line up, it's just it caught fire around the world because of social media.
Can I just something I wanted to mention earlier? I mean, I kind of wanted to clarify something I said, or try to anyway. What I mentioned about, I think I alluded to the George Floyd video. And I just wanted to make clear that, yeah, I mean, I believe, I know racism is still, I mean, a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's no question about that. But I don't think that changes the fact that we don't know, even though we saw things happen in that video, we don't know everything. I don't know. Actually, that Sam Harris most recent podcast did a really good job of breaking that down. But I mean, no matter what is provable, due process aside, everything is. I mean, it's still it's tragic. But yeah.
There's no reason to disband. There's no reason to disband the police. As I love listening to Kira Davis now.
It's terrifying. I mean,
she's like, one of the things, here's a point she made. She's like, in these places, they want to defund the police. First of all, when you see police activity in heavily policed areas go down, the number of black lives lost goes up because crime goes up. So even though you might have a complaint that black lives are being lost to the police, that's less than what will happen when the police go away. And she said, second thing, those areas are so democratically controlled that it's difficult to buy a gun and be a gun owner. So she's like, you're taking away the police to protect us and not allowing us to even have a gun to protect ourselves. You can't do that to people. You can't say, and I think it comes from this false belief that if we just let people be, they're going to be peaceful. They're not going to be peaceful. I do not inherently believe that people are good. I believe people are inherently bad.
No, yeah. I mean, this kind of gets into philosophy and whatnot. But for me, I agree with you, but in a different way. With me, being, an atheist and a determinist and a materialist, I believe that people are animals. And I mean, just ultimately, that to me, would be my version of what you would say.
Yeah.
That people are bad or whatnot. It's true. I mean, we're flesh and blood, and we're not perfect, and we need to be controlled to some. That doesn't necessarily mean.
Well, and I think we know that well enough to have set up the institutions to issue that control.
Yeah,
such as police.
Yeah, just the whole defund the police is like. I mean,
I'm all for reform. Reform away.
Yeah, you mentioned my my college career earlier, and it's interesting because majoring in English, when I did, I got kind of a bird's eye view of kind of the ideology that's deep into mainstream leftist politics. Because I took a class that was called critical theory, and yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, if you know anything, if you've ever heard anybody talk about what that is.
I did. I mentioned it in a video I did about racism and critical race theory, applying critical theory to critical race theory.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very academic, pretentious kind of thing, but it's just this. I heard Brett Weinstein on Joe Rogan's podcast a few days ago. He was really eloquent about what it is in general, critical theory, and what it stands for. I mean, up to and including the undoing of the sciences, because they're inherently racist or white supremacist and whatnot.
Yeah, even the scientific method was invented by white people, therefore it's racist. Reasoning, logical reasoning. I mean, I've literally heard people say that logic and reasoning is a white tool. I'm like, you can't have society without people having reason.
You can't cross the street and not get hit by a car or whatever. That's white? I don't think that's white.
I don't think that's white, yeah.
It's true, though. I don't know. But,
we'll wrap it up here. I just kind of wanted to hear, your history and where you are now and what you're thinking now and why you're thinking it. And I feel like we did a good job of that. That's kind of my goal in these interviews. Was there anything else that you thought of that you had a question about or wanted to say?
No.
You were worried we wouldn't get 10 minutes out of this interview, and we've been going for like an
You're
hour.
right. How did you know that? How did you know that I was worried about that? Yeah, I guess I did say something.
You said it on the message, yeah.
But yeah, I'm not doing anything right now. I'm just waiting to take a trip in about a week or so. But yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back to work in the next, I guess, maybe a month or so, and hopefully we'll still have a civilization to work and earn money in by that point.
I hope so. All right. Well, thank you for coming on today.
I really enjoyed it.